Outpost Meridian 7 hung in the dark like a lonely lantern. It floated at the edge of the Kessler Belt, far from Earth, far from any big colony. The outpost was small. It had maybe 400 people living and working there. Most of them were miners, engineers, and their families. They pulled rare metals and quantum ore from the asteroids around them and shipped it back to human space. To anyone looking at Meridian 7 from far away, it looked weak. It had no warships parked outside. It had no big guns on its hull. It had a few old defense turrets, the kind you would expect on any small mining town. It looked like an easy target. That was exactly what the Skarn Ascendancy thought when their scout ships found it. The Skarn were an old species. They had been flying between the stars for over 3,000 years. They had conquered dozens of worlds and folded hundreds of smaller species into their empire. They believed they understood how young species behaved. Young species were weak. Young species built pretty things but did not know how to fight. Young species like humans, who had only been in space for about 200 years, were the easiest kind of prey. Fleet Commander Thex Voranu believed this more than most. He was a proud officer, tall even for a Skarn, with pale gray skin and dark eyes that missed very little. He had won his rank by conquering 3 border worlds without losing a single major ship. He liked easy wins. He liked being right. And when the report about Meridian 7 came across his desk, he smiled the thin smile of a man who thought he already knew how the story would end. A mining outpost, he said to his second officer, a smaller Skarn named Nires. Poorly defended, population under 500, human ships nearby, are listed as mining vessels only. No weapons detected. Nires looked over the same report on her own screen. The scans agree, Commander. Their turrets are old models. Slow to turn, weak shields. Their 2 large ships in orbit are registered as ore haulers and drilling platforms. Then this will be simple, Thex said. We take the outpost. We take their ore stockpiles. We take prisoners as leverage, and we send a message to the rest of human space. Do not build outposts near Skarn borders. Nires hesitated. Command wants results, Commander. But should we not call for a larger fleet just in case? Thex laughed, a short, sharp sound. For a mining town? No. We do not need to waste ships and time on ceremony. 6 warships is more than enough. We will be done before the humans even know what hit them. He was wrong, but he would not learn that until it was much too late. On Meridian 7, the day began like any other. Outpost Director Elena Cross walked through the main hub with a cup of recycled coffee in her hand, checking the shift reports on her tablet. She was in her 40s, with short dark hair and the tired but steady look of someone who had run this outpost for 6 years. She knew every corridor, every worker, and every problem this place could throw at her. What she did not expect, on this particular morning, was the alert that came through her comm. Director Cross, we have a situation, said the voice of her sensor officer, a young man named Priya's assistant, Tomas Reyes. His voice was tight. Long-range sensors are picking up 6 unknown contacts, inbound from the belt's edge. They are not on any registered trade lane. Elena stopped walking. 6 contacts. Confirmed hostile? Unknown. But they are burning hard and holding formation. That is not how traders fly. Elena set down her coffee. Get me Captain Okafor on the Iron Harvest. A moment later, the screen in front of her lit up with the face of Captain Dana Okafor, a broad-shouldered woman with close-cropped gray hair and calm eyes. Dana commanded the Iron Harvest, one of the 2 big ships in orbit around Meridian 7. To any outside observer, the Iron Harvest was simply a mining ship, built to crack open asteroids and haul ore back to the outpost. Dana, Elena said, we might have company. Unknown ships incoming. Dana's face did not change much, but her eyes sharpened. How many? And how far? 6 ships. Sensors put them at maybe 40 minutes out, if they keep their current burn. Copy that, Dana said. I'll get the crew ready. You know what that means. Elena nodded slowly. Quiet protocol. Let's see what they want before we show our hand. What most people outside the outpost did not know, what even most people inside human space did not know, was that Meridian 7 was not just any mining outpost. It sat near a disputed stretch of space, close enough to old conflict zones that Earth's government had quietly decided it needed more than turrets to protect it. But they could not send warships without drawing attention. Warships parked around a mining outpost would raise questions from every rival power watching human borders. So instead, Earth's engineers had done something simpler, and in some ways much smarter. They had taken the design for heavy mining ships, the kind built to punch through solid rock, cut apart metal asteroids, and survive the brutal environment of the belt, and quietly reinforce them even further. The plasma drills used to melt through stone could be redirected to cut through hull plating. The mass drivers used to launch ore canisters toward the outpost could just as easily launch something far more dangerous. The heavy armor plating meant to survive asteroid collisions could also survive weapons fire that would tear apart a normal light warship. On paper, the Iron Harvest and its sister ship, the Deep Driller, were registered as civilian mining vessels. In practice, they were something else entirely. Something the Skarn scans had completely missed, because the Skarn were not looking for it. They were not looking for a threat, because they had already decided, before they even arrived, that humans were not a threat at all. The 6 Skarn ships closed the distance. Thex Voranu stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Ashen Talon, watching the small outpost grow larger on the main display. Around him, his bridge crew worked calmly, confident in an easy victory. "Comms," Thex said. "Open a channel to the outpost. Let us give them the chance to surrender quietly. It saves us the trouble of digging through rubble for their stockpiles." The channel opened. On Meridian 7, Elena Cross received the transmission in the command center. The whole staff gathered around to listen. A deep, rough voice filled the room, translated through the outpost systems into clear English. "This is Fleet Commander Thex Voranu, of the Skarn Ascendancy. Your outpost lies within contested space. You will power down your defenses and prepare for boarding. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Comply, and your people will be spared." The room was silent for a moment. Then Elena leaned toward the comm. "This is Director Elena Cross, of Outpost Meridian 7. We are a civilian mining operation. We have no quarrel with the Skarn Ascendancy. I would ask that you reconsider this approach." Thex's voice came back, dripping with the confidence of a man who had done this many times before. "Reconsideration is not an option, Director. You have 10 minutes to power down. After that, we begin our approach regardless." The channel closed. Elena looked around the room at her staff. Tomas at sensors. Her chief engineer, Marcus Webb, standing near the back with his arms crossed and a hard look on his face. Everyone here had trained for this moment, even if none of them had truly believed it would come. "Get everyone into their protected positions," Elena said. "Marcus, prep the outpost defenses, all of them, but keep them passive for now. Tomas, keep tracking those ships and feed everything to the Iron Harvest and the Deep Driller." "You're not powering down," Marcus said. It was not a question. "No," Elena said. "We are not." On board the Iron Harvest, Dana Okafor received the same transmission, relayed from the outpost. She listened to it once, then looked at her weapons officer, a quiet, serious man named Elijah Park. "Well," Dana said, "I suppose it's time we stop pretending to be just miners." Elijah allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Drill teams are already moving to combat stations, Captain. Reactor output climbing to full. 10 minutes should be more than enough." "Good," Dana said, settling into her command chair. "Let's give the Skarn Ascendancy a lesson in reading the fine print." The 10 minutes passed slowly for everyone watching the clock. On the Ashen Talon, Thex Voranu watched the outpost defenses remain dark, unresponsive, exactly as expected. He allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. Humans, as predicted, understood when they were beaten. "Bring the fleet in," he ordered. "Standard approach pattern. Prepare boarding shuttles." The 6 Skarn warships began their final approach, sleek gray vessels with sharp angular hulls, built for speed and intimidation, rather than heavy combat. They had not expected to need heavy combat here. Their scans, run again as they closed the distance, still showed nothing alarming. The 2 large human ships in orbit still registered as mining vessels, their weapon signatures reading as mining equipment, drills, cutters, cargo systems. It was only when the lead Skarn ship, the Iron Fang, came within firing range of the Iron Harvest that something changed on their sensors. The Skarn sensor officer on the Iron Fang frowned at his display. "Commander Voranu, I'm reading a power spike from the human mining ship. Reactor output far beyond anything in their registered specifications. Thex, watching from the ashen talon a few kilometers back, felt the first small itch of doubt. Define far beyond. Sir, their reactor output just matched our own warship cores. Before Thex could respond, before anyone on his bridge could fully process what that meant, the Iron Harvest's forward hull split open, along lines that had never appeared in any Skarn scan. What had looked like simple drilling equipment folded outward, revealing something else entirely underneath. Heavy plasma cutters, the kind built to slice through solid asteroid rock in seconds, rotated to bear on the Iron Fang. Mass driver ports, once used only to launch ore canisters gently toward the outpost, opened along the ship's flanks, and behind them sat rounds built for something far more destructive than cargo delivery. "Commander," the sensor officer said, his voice suddenly tight with alarm, "that is not a mining ship." Thex Varanu stared at the display, at the ship he had dismissed only minutes ago as harmless cargo, now bristling with weapons his scans had somehow never caught. For the first time since he had taken command of this fleet, the confident smile disappeared from his face. "All ships," he said slowly, "prepare for combat." But he was already too late. The Iron Harvest fired first. Its heavy plasma cutters, built to slice through rock and metal ore in seconds, tore into the Iron Fang's hull before the Skarn ship's shields could fully charge. The beams cut clean through the lead ship's armor, the same armor that had shrugged off weapons fire from 3 different rebellious colonies in the past year. Against a warship's weapons, that armor might have held. Against tools built to carve apart solid asteroids, it did not stand a chance. The Iron Fang staggered in space, venting atmosphere and burning fuel from a dozen new wounds. Alarms screamed across its bridge. Its captain, a veteran named Dress Kalorn, barely had time to shout an order before a second hit, this one from the Iron Harvest's mass drivers, slammed into the ship's reactor core. The Iron Fang did not explode instantly. It simply came apart, sections of hull peeling away, as internal systems failed one after another. Escape pods launched late, too late for most of the crew. On the Ashen Talon, Thex Varanu watched his lead ship die in less than 2 minutes. Around him, his bridge crew stared in stunned silence. "That is not possible," Nyress said quietly. "Our scans showed mining equipment, civilian-grade reactors, nothing like this." "Clearly," Thex snapped, "our scans were wrong." He forced himself to think, to push past the shock. He had commanded fleets for over a decade. He would not fall apart now, not in front of his crew. "All ships, target the human vessel identified as Iron Harvest. Concentrate fire. If it can kill the Iron Fang in 2 strikes, we cannot allow it to line up a third." 5 remaining Skarn warships turned their weapons toward the Iron Harvest, opening fire in a coordinated volley. This was the kind of maneuver that had won Thex his reputation: disciplined, fast, and overwhelming. Under normal circumstances, 5 warships firing together could break through almost any single target's shields within seconds. But the Iron Harvest was not built like a normal warship. Its hull plating had been designed to survive direct asteroid collisions at high speed, the kind of impact that would crumple a lesser vessel instantly. Layer after layer of reinforced material absorbed the incoming fire. Sections of the outer hull cracked and glowed red-hot, but the ship held. "Shields at 60%, Elijah Park called out from his station on the Iron Harvest's bridge. "Hull integrity holding at 82. They hit hard, Captain, but we're built for hard hits." Dana Okafor gripped the arms of her command chair. "Return fire. Target their engines first. I want them slow before I want them dead." The Iron Harvest's weapons swung into a new firing pattern, and this time its crew, made up of veteran miners who had spent years cutting apart some of the toughest rock in the belt, worked with practiced precision. Plasma cutters traced lines across a second Skarn ship's engine section. Mass driver rounds, built to punch through solid stone, slammed into the same weak points over and over. The second Skarn ship's engines flared, sputtered, and died. It drifted, helpless, still firing weapons but no longer able to maneuver. While the Iron Harvest fought, the Deep Driller, the Outpost's second heavy mining vessel, moved to join the battle. It had been holding position on the far side of Meridian 7, quietly powering up while the Skarn fleet focused entirely on the Iron Harvest. Captain of the Deep Driller was a lean, sharp-eyed man named Victor Alvarez, known among the miners for his patience and his temper, which rarely showed itself until it was needed most. He watched the battle unfold on his display, waiting for the right moment. "They haven't noticed us yet," his weapons officer said. "All their sensors are locked on the iron harvest." "Then let's remind them we exist," Victor said calmly. "Full burn. Bring us in behind their formation." The deep driller surged forward, its heavy engines built to haul massive amounts of ore across long distances, now used for something else entirely. A fast, brutal charge, straight into the unprotected rear of the Skarn fleet. By the time Narration on the Ashen Talon noticed the new contact closing in from behind, it was already in weapons range. "Commander, second human ship approaching from our flank. It is matching the same signature as the first. Heavy weapons, heavy armor." Thex felt something cold settle in his chest. Two of these ships, not one anomaly, but a pattern. That meant this was not some strange accident of engineering. This was deliberate. The humans had planned for exactly this kind of attack. "All ships, break formation," he ordered. "Do not let them box us in." It was too late for two of his remaining warships. The deep driller opened fire at close range, its plasma cutters tearing through the unshielded rear sections of a third Skarn vessel, the part of the ship least protected because no one had expected an attack from that direction. The ship's secondary reactor ignited, and it broke apart in a silent flash of light. A fourth Skarn ship, still reeling from the sudden reversal, tried to flee toward open space, only for the Iron Harvest's mass drivers to catch it broadside. Its shields collapsed under the impact, and its hull buckled inward. In less than 10 minutes, what had begun as a 6-ship invasion fleet had been cut down to 2 ships still capable of fighting, the Ashen Talon, and 1 badly damaged escort called the Grey Current. Down on Meridian 7, the Outpost's command center watched the battle unfold on their own sensors, the room tense and silent, except for the occasional sharp intake of breath, as another Skarn ship went dark on their displays. "They're doing it," Tomas said, disbelief in his voice. "They're actually winning." Elena Cross allowed herself a small, tight breath of relief, though she did not let her guard down. "Keep tracking. This isn't over until every one of those ships is gone or running." Marcus Webb stood beside her, watching the same display, his jaw set hard. 6 warships against 2 mining ships, and we're the ones winning. "I almost feel bad for them." "Almost," Elena said. On the Outpost's own defenses, still mostly passive throughout the battle, a few automated point defense turrets began tracking incoming debris and stray fire, protecting the Outpost's outer hull from damage, even as the larger battle raged in the space around it. The Outpost itself had never needed to fire a single shot. It had never needed to. Aboard the Ashen Talon, Thex Voranu stared at the wreckage of his fleet scattered across the display. 4 ships destroyed or disabled, hundreds of his crew dead or dying, all in less than 15 minutes. He had entered this system expecting an easy conquest. He was leaving it, if he left it at all, having suffered the worst defeat of his career. "Commander," Narration said quietly. "Orders?" Thex closed his eyes for a moment. Pride told him to keep fighting, to salvage some kind of victory from this disaster, to prove that the Skarn ascendancy could not be humiliated by a mining colony's overbuilt equipment. But the same instincts that had made him a successful commander for over a decade told him something else. This was not a battle he could win, not with 2 ships against 2 of these monsters disguised as mining vessels, backed by an outpost that had barely needed to lift a finger. "All remaining ships," he said, his voice heavy. "Retreat. Full burn away from the system. We regroup at the border checkpoint." "And the Grey Current?" Narration asked. "Its engines are damaged. It cannot match our burn." Thex hesitated only a moment. "Cover its retreat as best you can. We are not staying to find out what else these humans have hidden." The 2 remaining Skarn ships turned and fled, engines burning hard, racing away from Meridian 7, and the 2 ships that had, in the span of a single battle, completely shattered every assumption Thex Voranu had carried into this system. On the Iron Harvest, Dana Okafor watched the retreating Skarn ships on her display, her weapons crew still tracking them, waiting for orders to pursue. "Do we chase them down, Captain?" Elijah asked. Dana considered it for a moment, then shook her head. "No, let them go. Our job was to protect the outpost, not start a war we don't need. Besides," she allowed herself a small, tired smile, "I think they got the message loud and clear." Across the comm channel, Director Elena Cross's voice came through. steady, but warm with relief. Iron Harvest, Deep Driller. This is Meridian 7. Good work up there. Both of you, come on home. Let's get your crews checked over and start looking at the damage. Copy that, Director, Dana said. Heading in now. As the two mining ships turned back toward the outpost, their hulls scorched and battered but intact, Dana allowed herself to think about what had just happened. The Skarn had come expecting an easy conquest. They had left with 4 ships destroyed and their pride in ruins. But Dana also knew, as she watched the last traces of Skarn engine burn fade into the dark, that this would not be the end of it. An empire like the Skarn Ascendancy did not simply walk away from a humiliation like this. They would come back. And next time, they would come back with more than 6 ships. She keyed her comm to the outpost. Director Cross, I think we need to talk about reinforcements. Because I don't think this is over. On the Ashen Talon, retreating through the dark toward the border, Fleet Commander Thex Voranu was thinking the exact same thing. 3 weeks after the battle, the Skarn Ascendancy's Border Command received Thex Voranu's report. It did not go well for him. He stood in a cold, gray briefing room aboard the Ascendancy's regional command station, facing a panel of 3 senior officers. High Admiral Soranak sat in the center, an old and severe woman with silver markings across her pale skin, marking decades of service. She had read Thex's report twice before the meeting even began, and her expression made it clear she was not pleased. 4 ships, she said slowly. 4 warships, lost to 2 mining vessels, and a colony that never even fired a shot of its own. Explain to me, Commander, how this happened. Thex kept his back straight, though every instinct told him to look away from her stare. High Admiral, our scans showed no indication of military capability on those vessels. Their weapon signatures, reactor output, everything read as civilian mining equipment. The humans disguised true warships as simple cargo haulers. And you did not consider, Soranak said, that a species we know little about might not build things the way we expect. Thex had no good answer for that. He had assumed. He had been so certain of an easy victory that he had not questioned what his own sensors told him, even when the numbers on paper did not fully add up. That mistake had cost him 4 ships and hundreds of lives. It will not happen again, he said. No, Soranak agreed. It will not, because you will not be the one leading the next fleet. The room went quiet. Thex felt the words land like a physical blow, though he had expected something like this the moment his ship limped back across the border. You are relieved of fleet command, Soranak continued. But you are not being discarded, Commander. You understand this enemy now better than anyone else in the Ascendancy. You will serve as an advisor to the new fleet commander, and you will help us make sure this mistake is never repeated. Thex bowed his head slightly. It was not the outcome he had wanted, but it was better than the alternative. Understood, High Admiral. Who will lead the new fleet? The door to the briefing room opened, and a new figure stepped inside. She was younger than Thex, with a lean build and sharp, calculating eyes that swept the room before settling on him. Her name, as Thex would soon learn, was Fleet Commander Vashti Kaur, known across the Ascendancy for her caution and her thoroughness, qualities that had kept her ships intact through 3 difficult campaigns. I will, Vashti said, and unlike my predecessor, I do not intend to underestimate anyone twice. Back at Meridian 7, life on the outpost had returned to something like normal, though everyone knew it was a fragile kind of normal. Repairs to the Iron Harvest and the Deep Driller were well underway, their hulls patched and their weapons systems checked and rechecked. Both ships had survived the battle, but neither had walked away unscathed. Elena Cross sat in her office, going over supply requests and defense reports with Marcus Webb and Dana Okafor. A secure line had been opened to Earth's Colonial Defense Authority shortly after the battle, and the response had come faster than anyone expected. They're sending reinforcements, Elena said, reading from her tablet. 3 additional heavy mining vessels, all upgraded with the same defense package as the Iron Harvest and the Deep Driller, and a proper escort ship, the Resolute, built from the ground up as a warship this time, not just dressed up as one. Dana leaned back in her chair. About time. We got lucky this round. The Skarn came in overconfident and underprepared. Next time they won't make that mistake. They're not going to just walk away from 4 dead ships, Marcus said. Not an empire like that. We beat their pride, and that's the kind of thing that brings the real fleet. Elena nodded slowly. She had thought the same thing since the moment the Skarn ships fled the system. Colonial Defense agrees with you. They're treating Meridian 7 as a likely target for a larger response. That's why they're reinforcing us instead of pulling us out. Pulling us out was never going to happen anyway, Dana said. This outpost sits on some of the richest quantum ore deposits we've found in 20 years. Earth isn't giving that up without a fight. No, Elena agreed. It isn't, which means we need to be ready for when the Skarn come back, and come back smarter. Fleet Commander Vashti Kaur did not rush. Where Thex Voranu had charged into Meridian 7, with 6 ships and blind confidence, Vashti spent the following months gathering information first. She reviewed every scrap of data from the failed invasion, every sensor log, every fragment of wreckage recovered from the destroyed ships. She brought in engineers and analysts to study exactly how the human mining vessels had hidden their true nature from Skarn scanners. The weapons themselves were not advanced, one analyst reported to her during a briefing. Plasma cutters and mass drivers, technology similar to what we use ourselves, though modified for heavier applications. What made them effective was concealment and armor. The humans built their civilian equipment strong enough to double as weapons and defense, and they hid it well enough that our scans read it as harmless. Then the lesson, Vashti said, is not to underestimate anything that looks harmless. Humans do not separate their civilian technology from their military technology the way we do. Everything they build might be a weapon in disguise. Thex, seated at the edge of the briefing room, spoke up for the first time. There is something else worth considering, Commander. The 2 ships that fought us were crewed by miners, not soldiers. People trained to break apart solid rock under difficult conditions. When the fighting began, they did not panic. They fought with the same discipline they use every day in their work. Vashti considered this. You believe their strength comes not just from their equipment, but from the people using it. I believe, Thex said carefully, that we should not assume we understand humans, simply because we now know what their ships can do. There may be more surprises waiting for us. Vashti nodded slowly. She did not intend to repeat Thex's mistake of overconfidence, but she also would not let fear of the unknown stop her from completing her mission. The Ascendancy did not tolerate failure twice, and she intended to succeed where her predecessor had not. We will bring a larger fleet this time, she said. 12 warships, properly built for combat, not scouts sent to intimidate a weak colony. We will also bring specialized scanning equipment, designed specifically to detect concealed weapon systems, based on what we learned here. And we will not approach carelessly. We study the target fully, before we commit to any attack. 12 ships, Nares said quietly, having transferred to Vashti's staff, after the disaster at Meridian 7. That should be more than enough to overwhelm whatever defenses they have built up since the last attack. Perhaps, Vashti said, but we will not assume that, not this time. Back on Meridian 7, the promised reinforcements arrived 4 months after the first battle. 3 new heavy mining vessels settled into orbit alongside the Iron Harvest and the Deep Driller, their hulls carrying the same hidden weapon systems, built and tested by engineers who had studied every detail of the first battle to make the next generation even stronger. Alongside them came the Resolute, a proper warship at last, built from the start with weapons and armor rather than disguised mining equipment. Dana Okafor stood on the observation deck of the Iron Harvest, watching the new ships settle into formation around the outpost. Beside her stood Victor Alvarez from the Deep Driller, and the new arrival's senior officers, gathered for a joint briefing. 5 heavy mining vessels, and 1 proper warship, Victor said, looking over the assembled fleet. That's a real defense force now, not just 2 ships and a prayer. It's better than what we had, Dana agreed. But if the Skarn come back with the kind of numbers colonial defense is warning us about, we're still going to be outnumbered. Outnumbered isn't the same as outmatched, Victor said. We proved that once already. Dana allowed herself a small smile at that, though she knew better than most how close that first battle had actually been. The Skarn had come in careless and overconfident, and that carelessness had cost them everything. The next fleet would not make the same mistake. She had no illusions about that. Whatever comes next, she said, we need to be ready for a real fight, not just another lucky ambush. Below them, on the surface of Meridian 7, Elena Cross watched the growing fleet from her office window, a small knot of worry sitting in her chest despite the reassurance of the new arrivals. She had seen the reports coming in from colonial defense, hints and fragments gathered from long-range listening posts near the border. The Skarn Ascendancy was building something at their border checkpoint, something bigger than the 6 ships that had come the first time. She did not know exactly what was coming, or when. But she knew, with the certainty of someone who had already lived through one invasion, that the peace they were enjoying now would not last. Somewhere beyond the edge of human space, Fleet Commander Vashti Kaur gave the order to begin final preparations. 12 warships, fully crewed, fully armed, and equipped with new scanning technology, built specifically to see through whatever tricks the humans might try next. The next battle for Meridian 7 was coming, and this time, neither side intended to be caught by surprise. 8 months after the first battle, the sensors on Meridian 7 detected a fleet far larger than anything they had seen before. Tomas Reyes nearly dropped his tablet when the readings came in. "Director Cross, you need to see this. Long-range sensors are picking up 12 large contacts, inbound from the same direction as before. These aren't scout ships. These read as full warships, heavy shielding, heavy weapons across the board." Elena Cross felt her stomach tighten as she looked at the display. 12 ships. Twice as many as before, and this time, they were not disguised as anything. The Skarn were not bothering to hide their intentions. "Time until they reach us?" she asked. "At their current burn, maybe 6 hours." Elena immediately opened a channel to the full defense fleet. Dana Okafor's face appeared on the screen, along with Victor Alvarez and the commanders of the other 3 mining vessels, and finally Captain Reina Osei of the Resolute, the Outpost's first proper warship. "You've all seen the numbers," Elena said. 12 ships. That's double what we faced last time, and this fleet knows exactly what we're capable of. We won't have the element of surprise this time. "Understood," Captain Osei said, her voice calm and steady. "But we're also not the same defense force we were 8 months ago. We have 5 heavy mining vessels with combat modifications, my ship built for battle from the ground up, and this outpost's own defenses have been significantly upgraded since the last attack. We won't win by hiding what we are. We'll win by using everything we've got, together, as a real fleet." Dana nodded in agreement. "Last time, the Skarn made the mistake of underestimating us. This time, they'll know exactly what to expect. Which means, we need a different plan. We can't rely on the same trick twice." "Agreed," Elena said. "Let's get everyone into position. I want a full tactical briefing in 1 hour. We have 6 hours to prepare for the biggest fight this outpost has ever seen." Aboard her flagship, the Talon's Reach, Fleet Commander Vashti Kaur studied the sensor readings coming back from Meridian 7, with careful, methodical attention. Her new scanning equipment, built specifically to detect concealed weapon systems, was already picking apart the human fleet's true capabilities. "Report," she said to her sensor officer. "Commander, we're getting much clearer readings than last time. The 5 mining vessels show the same concealed weapon signatures as before, though improved. Stronger armor, more powerful reactors. There's also a 6th ship, this one reading as a genuine warship from the start, no concealment at all. It appears the humans have decided to stop hiding their true strength." Thex Varanu, standing at Vashti's side as her advisor, studied the same readings with a grim expression. "They know we're coming in force. There's no reason to hide anymore. This time, they intend to meet us head-on. 6 capable ships against our 12, Vashti said. "The numbers favor us significantly, even accounting for their improved capabilities." "Numbers favored you last time as well," Thex reminded her quietly. 6 warships against what looked like 2 harmless mining vessels. We lost 4 ships in 15 minutes. Vashti's expression tightened slightly, but she did not dismiss the warning. "Noted, Commander. Which is why we will not repeat that mistake. We approach carefully, in a formation that does not allow them to isolate and destroy our ships one at a time. We use our new scanning data to target their weak points before they can bring their weapons to bear, and we do not underestimate them, not for a single moment of this engagement." She turned to address her full bridge crew. "This is not a punitive raid anymore. This is a full engagement, and Command expects results. We take Meridian 7, or we destroy it. Either outcome sends the message that the Skarn Ascendancy does not tolerate this kind of humiliation twice." Back on Meridian 7, the tactical briefing stretched long into the remaining hours before the Skarn fleet's arrival. Elena Cross stood at the head of the room, surrounded by ship captains, defense officers, and Marcus Webb, who had spent the last 8 months overseeing every upgrade to the outpost's own defenses. "Here's what we know," Marcus said, pulling up a display of the incoming fleet's formation. 12 ships, moving in a tight defensive formation this time. They learned from what happened to the Iron Fang. No isolated targets, no easy kills. They're going to come in as a group, and stay as a group. "Which means we can't rely on the same ambush tactics," Dana said. "Last time, we let them get close because they didn't know what we were. This time, they know exactly what we are, and they'll keep their distance until they're ready to overwhelm us all at once." Captain Osei leaned forward. "Then we change the terrain. We don't fight this battle on their terms, in open space where their numbers can surround us. We use the belt itself." Elena raised an eyebrow. "The asteroid field?" "Exactly," Osei said. "Our ships are built to operate in the belt every single day. We know these rock formations, these debris fields, these tight corridors between asteroids, better than any fleet that just arrived from outside the system. The Skarn ships are fast and powerful in open space, but 12 warships trying to maneuver through a dense asteroid field is a very different kind of fight." Victor Alvarez grinned at that. "We've been cutting through rock in this belt for years. We know exactly where the tight spots are, where the debris fields are thickest, where a big ship can get boxed in without room to turn. It also plays to our other strength," Marcus added. "Our mining ships are built to survive collisions and debris impacts as a matter of daily operation. Skarn warships are built for open space combat. They're not going to enjoy fighting inside an asteroid field nearly as much as we will." Elena studied the display, turning the idea over in her mind. It was risky, but so was everything about facing 12 warships with 6 ships of their own. "All right, we draw them into the belt. Marcus, I want mines and remote charges placed along the most likely approach corridors. Things we can detonate remotely once their fleet is inside." "Already working on it," Marcus said. "Give me 4 hours, and I'll have enough charges placed to make them regret ever entering that field." "Then let's get to work," Elena said. "We have 6 hours before that fleet arrives, and every minute counts." The Skarn fleet entered the outer edge of the Kessler Belt exactly on schedule, 12 warships moving in careful formation, their new scanning equipment sweeping constantly for any hidden threats. Vashti Kaur watched the readings from her command chair, alert for any sign of the kind of trap that had destroyed Thex's fleet the first time. "No concealed weapon signatures detected beyond what we already know," her sensor officer reported. "The human fleet is holding position near the outpost. All 6 ships visible and accounted for." "They're not hiding anything this time," Vashti murmured. "Good, then this will be a straightforward engagement." She paused, studying the belt itself on her display, the dense field of asteroids and debris surrounding the approach to Meridian 7. "Helm, plot a course that keeps us clear of the densest debris fields. I don't want our formation disrupted by asteroid collisions before we even reach the enemy." "Understood, Commander." The fleet adjusted course, threading carefully around the thickest clusters of rock and debris, exactly as Vashti intended. What she did not know, what her scans could not tell her, was that the course she had chosen to avoid danger was exactly the course the human defenders had anticipated her taking. Elena Cross watched the Skarn fleet's approach from the outpost's command center, her eyes fixed on the display as the 12 warships moved into the corridor Marcus had spent the last several hours preparing. "They're taking the northern approach," Tomas said, "exactly where Marcus placed the heaviest concentration of charges." Elena felt a small, tight breath escape her. "Get me Marcus." Marcus Webb's voice came through a moment later, tense with concentration. "I see them, Director. They're moving right into the kill zone. Just say the word." Elena watched the 12 Skarn warships continue their careful, confident advance through the corridor, completely unaware of what waited for them in the rock and debris surrounding their path. "Do it," she said. Across the Kessler Belt, dozens of remote charges, hidden inside asteroid fragments and debris clusters throughout the corridor, detonated at once. The explosions themselves were not powerful enough to destroy a warship outright, but they did something far more valuable. They shattered massive sections of rock and debris into a chaotic storm of shrapnel, sending huge chunks of asteroid tumbling directly into the path of the advancing Skarn fleet. Alarms erupted across every ship in Vashti Kaur's formation, as debris impacts began tearing into shields and hull plating faster than her crews could compensate. "Report," Vashti shouted over the sudden chaos on her bridge. Multiple debris impacts across the fleet, Commander. Shields failing on 3 ships. We've lost formation integrity. Vashti's eyes narrowed as she watched her carefully planned advance dissolve into confusion around her. The humans had not needed hidden weapons this time. They had simply used the one thing every ship in her fleet could not avoid, the very rock and stone of the belt itself, turned against them by people who had spent years learning exactly how to break it apart. All ships, she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. Hold formation as best you can. This is not over. This is only the beginning. On Meridian 7, Elena Cross watched the chaos unfolding across her display. 12 Skarn warships scattered and struggling through a storm of debris they had never expected. It was not a victory yet, not even close. But it was, at last, a fighting chance. Dana, she said into the comm. They're disorganized and vulnerable. Now's your window. Aboard the Iron Harvest, Dana Okafor smiled grimly as she watched the same chaos unfold. Copy that, Director. All ships, this is it. Let's finish what we started 8 months ago. The 6 human ships surged forward into the debris field, weapons charging, ready to strike at a fleet that had come expecting an easy, overwhelming victory, and instead found itself fighting for survival in a battlefield the humans knew far better than they ever would. The debris storm had bought the humans exactly what they needed, a moment of chaos in an enemy fleet that had come prepared for everything except the belt itself turning against them. Now that moment was closing fast, and both sides knew it. Dana Okafor watched her tactical display as the Iron Harvest led the human fleet into the scattered Skarn formation. 3 enemy ships had taken serious damage from the debris field, their shields flickering, their hulls scarred by impacts they had never planned for. The other 9 were still largely intact, but their tight formation had broken apart, leaving gaps that a disciplined defender could exploit. Target the damaged ships first, Dana ordered. Finish what the belt started before they can recover. The Iron Harvest's weapons swung toward the nearest crippled Skarn vessel, plasma cutters and mass drivers tearing into a hull already weakened by asteroid impacts. It did not take long. The ship's shields collapsed under the combined damage, and its reactor went dark, leaving it drifting and defeated among the wreckage of the corridor. Beside the Iron Harvest, the Deep Driller and the 3 other mining vessels pressed their own attacks, each one targeting a different damaged ship in the scattered Skarn formation. Captain Osei's Resolute moved differently, faster and more agile than the heavy mining vessels, darting between the gaps in the enemy formation to strike at ships trying to regroup. Aboard the Talon's Reach, Vashti Kaur fought to bring order back to her fleet. All ships, converge on my position. We cannot fight this scattered. Commander, her sensor officer called out, voice strained. We've lost contact with 3 vessels already. The humans are picking off our damaged ships faster than we can regroup. Vashti's jaw tightened. This was exactly the kind of situation she had promised herself she would avoid, exactly the mistake Thex Voranu had warned her about. But warnings and preparation could only go so far against an enemy fighting on ground they knew intimately, using tactics she had never fully anticipated. Thex, standing at her side, watched the chaos with a strange mixture of vindication and dread. He had been right that the humans held more surprises than anyone expected, but being right brought him no satisfaction now, only the grim knowledge that his own fleet was suffering the same fate as the one he had commanded 8 months earlier. Commander, he said quietly, we need to consider withdrawal before this becomes a total loss. Withdrawal is not an option, Vashti snapped. Not with Command's expectations riding on this engagement. Then consider this, Thex said. A partial withdrawal now preserves most of our fleet for a future engagement, planned properly, without the chaos of this belt working against us. A continued fight here risks losing everything, the same way I lost everything the first time. Vashti did not answer immediately. She watched her tactical display, counting the losses mounting with every passing minute. 5 ships now damaged or destroyed, the human fleet still pressing their advantage, with a coordination that spoke of careful planning rather than lucky chaos. All ships, she finally said, her voice heavy with the weight of the decision. Regroup and prepare for withdrawal. We are not throwing away this entire fleet for a single outpost. On Meridian 7, Elena Cross watched the tactical display with a mixture of hope and disbelief as the Skarn fleet began pulling back, their damaged ships retreating first, the rest of the formation falling back to cover them. "They're breaking off," Tomas said, his voice full of relief. "Director, they're actually retreating." Elena allowed herself a small breath, though she did not relax completely. "Dana, do we pursue?" Dana's voice came through the comm, thoughtful rather than eager. "We could. We've got the advantage right now, but chasing a retreating fleet into open space, away from the belt, gives up every advantage we just used to beat them. I say we let them go, and hold our position here." Elena considered this for a moment, then nodded, even though Dana could not see the gesture. "Agreed. Let them retreat. We've made our point twice now. I don't think we need a third battle to prove it." Across the belt, the surviving Skarn ships gathered what remained of their formation, and began the long burn back toward the border, leaving behind the wreckage of 7 warships scattered among the asteroids of the Kessler Belt. It was not the total victory Vashti Kor had promised her superiors, but it was, at the very least, a fleet that would survive to fight another day, unlike the one Thex Voranu had led into disaster 8 months before. Weeks later, the report of the second battle for Meridian 7 reached High Admiral Soranak's desk. She read it twice, the same way she had read Thex's report months earlier, though this time her expression carried something closer to grim respect than simple anger. 12 ships, she said to the officers gathered in her briefing room. 12 properly equipped warships, led by one of our most careful and capable commanders, and we still lost 7 of them to a single Outpost's defense fleet. Vashti Kor stood before the panel, her posture stiff but unbroken. "High Admiral, the humans used the terrain against us in ways our scans could not predict. They turned the asteroid belt itself into a weapon, something no amount of preparation could have fully accounted for. And yet you retreated with 5 ships intact," Soranak said. "Rather than losing your entire fleet, the way Commander Voranu lost his." "Yes, High Admiral. I judged that preserving what remained of our forces served the ascendancy better than a total loss in pursuit of a single outpost." Soranak was quiet for a long moment, considering this. Beside Vashti, Thex Voranu stood silently, having offered his own report on the engagement, one that emphasized both the tactical lessons learned and a growing concern that ran deeper than any single battle. "There is something else worth noting, High Admiral," Thex finally said. "In 2 engagements now, this human colony, a single outpost of fewer than 500 people, has defeated a combined force of 18 Skarn warships. If this is what a mining outpost can do when properly prepared, we should ask ourselves what the rest of human space might be capable of, should we ever provoke a larger conflict." The room fell silent at that. It was not the kind of question anyone wanted to consider seriously, not after decades of assuming younger species posed little real threat to the Ascendancy's dominance. But the evidence sitting in front of them, 2 failed invasions and 11 destroyed warships, made the question impossible to dismiss entirely. "Perhaps," Soranak said slowly, "it is time we reconsidered our approach to this particular border. Not with more warships, Commander Kor, but with diplomacy. If humanity can defend a single mining outpost this fiercely, I have no wish to discover what defending an entire world might look like." Back on Meridian 7, life slowly returned to something resembling normal in the months that followed the second battle. The outpost's population grew, as new workers arrived, drawn by steady work and the quiet confidence that came from knowing this small colony had twice turned back a much larger invading force. Elena Cross stood on the observation deck one evening, watching the 6 ships of the defense fleet holding their patrol positions around the outpost, their hulls repaired, their crews rested after months of tension. Dana Okafor joined her, along with Victor Alvarez and Captain Osei, the 4 of them looking out at the quiet stretch of the Kessler Belt beyond the outpost's hull. "Colonial Defense sent word this morning," Elena said. "Word from a diplomatic channel, of all things. The Skarn Ascendancy is requesting formal talks about the border near this system." Dana raised an eyebrow. "Talks, after all that? Seems they've decided a peaceful border is worth more than another failed invasion," Elena said. "Funny how that works." Victor allowed himself a small, tired laugh. "Took them losing 18 ships to figure that out." "Some lessons take longer to learn than others," Captain Osei said. "But I'd rather they learn it this way than keep sending fleets until they get lucky." Elena nodded, looking out at the quiet dark of the belt, the same stretch of space that had once hidden 6 warships approaching with confident, careless intentions. and later had swallowed up half of an entire invasion fleet within its rocks and debris. "Whatever happens with the talks," she said, "I think word is going to spread." A mining outpost that turned back 2 invasion fleets isn't the kind of story that stays quiet for long. Dana smiled slightly, watching the Iron Harvest hold its patrol position in the dark beyond the outpost's hull, the same ship that had once looked, to any outside observer, like nothing more than a simple hauler of rock and ore. "Let them talk," she said. "Let every empire out there hear exactly what happened when they mistook a mining outpost for an easy target. Maybe next time, somebody thinks twice before trying it." Out in the quiet dark of the Kessler Belt, the 6 ships of Meridian 7's defense fleet continued their patrol, standing watch over an outpost that had proven, twice now, that appearances could be deeply, dangerously misleading. And far beyond the border, word of what had happened here was only beginning to spread through the wider galaxy, carried by traders, diplomats, and the survivors of 2 very costly lessons in underestimating humanity.